Alright guys, and welcome back to the Saints View, the channel for Southampton content. For a new video, obviously it's the international break at the moment, so no match content this week. But I feel like something needs to be addressed. We need to talk about Saints and what has gone wrong so far this season. Because in the summer there was a lot of expectation, a lot of optimism about what this team could do this season under the manager that we've got. And of course it's only 8 games, but that is a good chunk of the season already. It's about a quarter already, and we've not actually done anything different in my opinion, or it's just not been as good as we hoped it would have been so far. So I thought I'd talk about what's gone wrong, what needs to improve when we return from this international break, and obviously I'd like to get your guys' opinion as well if you'd let us know in the comments, but we'll get into that in a bit. Before we talk about Saints though, do make sure you're subscribed if you have not yet already. We're almost at 2,000 subscribers, so if you could go and support the channel, that'd be massively appreciated. We'd like to get there as soon as possible. Also go and follow us on our socials as well. Right, let's get into the video. So first I'm just going to do a little recap of this season so far, and then we're going to get into what I think has gone wrong thus far for the Saints. Of course, we had the worst possible start. That was the 3-0 defeat up at Burnley, but then another defeat after that, but it was a better performance, 2-1 against Liverpool. Liverpool didn't really do as well as they could have done or that we expected, and arguably we should have taken something from that game, but the performance was improved. And then the week following that game was a lot more enjoyable. A league win against Brighton, 2-0. Moussa Djenepo getting his first goal with a stunner, and then Redmond earning us the 3 points at the end. And then a cup win at Fulham, easy. And then a 1-1 draw against Manchester United, which was a pretty solid performance, I thought. So at that point, 4 points from 4 games, advancing in the cup, and then getting drawn a derby in the next round of the cup. Things looked all right, we played 2 of the top 6 already, and we've picked up 4 points from those games. Arguably the better Burnley result should have been better. We should have put in more of a performance, but there were things to work on, of course, but promising signs. Then we came back from the international break and won at Sheffield United. I think the best result we've had in the Premier League so far. A massive result. They were still on their bounce from being promoted, and they've actually done well. If you look at their results since then, they're still doing well. So it was massive to get a win there. Moussa Djenepo's goal has just been voted September goal of the month, so obviously very good for us. And I think we've missed him, and we'll talk about him a little bit later in the video. But after that, in the league, it's just been awful. We had the Bournemouth game and we all thought that should be winning it. It was another opportunity to get some points on the board after playing a lot of the top 6. Yeah, and it was just, in my opinion, the worst performance so far this season. On par with Chelsea and Burnley, but for me, I think the fact that Bournemouth should be a team who are close to us, and it gave them the excuse to brag and whatever because they think it's a derby. It just wasn't ideal. And after that, the derby, I think that was a very special night. I think overall it's the performance of the season. I know Sheffield United was the result, but in the league, I think overall it probably will be the best result of the entire season, the way it's looking. But then after that, the Spurs result should have taken something from that at the very least. 10 men for 60 minutes. We really should have won it, let's be honest. But we didn't create what we needed to at least get a draw. And then I think the less said about Chelsea, the better. So at the moment we've got 7 points from 8 league games. We are at 17th in the Premier League table. We've got goal difference of -7, having scored 8 goals and conceded 15. So that's scoring 1 a game and almost conceding 2 every single game so far. For me, I don't know about you lot, but it doesn't feel like much has changed. So let's get into what I think has gone wrong and what I think needs to improve for the rest of the season if we are to get to where we want to be this campaign. Now, first topic is substitutions and sort of all-round in-game tactics. Last season we saw Matt Hasenhüttl would be fantastic with his in-game substitutions. Arguably that's because he had Danny Rule as his assistant manager at the time, and he does at times look a bit lost on that touchline. But some of these substitutions, well, the majority really have just been on par with ridiculous in my opinion. At the start of the season we saw some good ideas coming from him. I think the Brighton game is the big one. Bringing Moussa Djenepo on around the 50th minute, literally with the second touch he scored, which proved to earn us 3 points because obviously we didn't concede. But seeing there was a problem, I can't remember who he took off, it might have been Valerie, but seeing there was a problem, something wasn't just quite right, especially because we were playing against 10 men, and making that change so early as well into the second half, and it worked, and we haven't seen that since. I think the Chelsea game stands out for me. First of all, starting Shane Long's a shambles, but bringing Michael Obafemi on, no offence to Obafemi by the way, but bringing Michael Obafemi on for Shane Long at the 70th minute when you're losing 3-1 at home, that's your first substitution. I think that's criminal. You have to be chasing the game. It was the same against Bournemouth. The substitutions came too late and they were the wrong ones as well. And that's been a real problem for me, and I think all the Saints fans would agree with me saying they've not been good enough and we haven't been starting games well enough anyway. So the fact that we're making our substitutions late, for me, it shows stubbornness. I love Hasenhuttl. Obviously I've got a lot of good things to say about him, but I think he has been quite stubborn so far with, first of all, his changes to the starting lineup and then the changes he makes in game. I think the substitutions have just come too late. It's almost as if he wants his players to prove that he made the right choice to start them, if that makes sense, as if he needs to justify that his decision to start these players was the right one, and then he'll take the last possible opportunity to make the change because he's now realised, oh, I actually need to chase a result here. But thankfully that's something that's quite easily changed, so hopefully it can. I hope he assesses a lot of what's happened so far this season and highlights that as something that he needs to improve on, because at the moment it's just not been good enough. There's a reason why we're not picking up results from losing positions. It's just because we take off our best players, or we just make the substitutions too late. And we have decent squad depth this year. You know, against Chelsea, we had a lot of firepower on that bench. It took until the 70th minute to start putting players on, and in my opinion, the worst possible player to put on at that point. So yeah, it really needs to improve. The next point I want to address is big players putting in poor performances. Now, Pierre-Emile Højbjerg was incredible for us last season. We're just sublime, being captain as well, and he's been nowhere near that so far this season. It's really painful to say because, like I say, he was so good. He's been quite good for us throughout his Saints career, but last year, you know, he was one of the first names in the team sheet, always putting in the right challenge. I know he picked up a couple of red cards, but overall the performances were really, really strong. And that's why I've been disappointed, you know, lackluster passing, missing tackles. It doesn't really look like he's running the troops as much either. It just needs to improve, because he's been lucky that Oro Romero has had a fantastic start to the season. Otherwise, we could have conceded even more goals. He's just not looked as solid, which is a real shame, but I kind of feel like he's prone from being dropped, and there's no one really who we can replace him with. It's almost as if his position is secured and he doesn't have to put in good performances, which is just ridiculous. Another one is James Ward-Prowse. I think, well, last season in the second half he was a lot better, but the first half of the season under Mark Hughes he was poor. He's been poor for quite a while, and again I think he's prone from being dropped just because he's a Saints boy. He's got free kicks in him, and to be honest, the free kicks he's produced so far have been awful. So, you know, what does he actually bring to this side? And that's really harsh, and I really like him, but it's just not been good enough. There are more players as well, but they're the two that I wanted to sort of mention because I think they're the key ones that we really do need to get their act together. Now, I also think fixtures have gone against us so far for the start of the season. Of course, you have to play every team home and away, but I think the ordering of some of these games hasn't really helped us, and that's one thing that's not really gone in our favour. You know, playing 4 of the top 6 in our first 8 games, it's not ideal, but then you could say 3 of them are at home, and on paper your home form should be better than your away form. You know, against Liverpool we competed, against Man United we competed, to an extent Spurs, but the Chelsea game was just so below par. And we didn't really try at all, which is really disappointing. And after the international break we've got Wolves and Leicester, 2 difficult games, especially the Leicester one. I do fear for that. But then in November and December there are some better fixtures. It's a bit more lenient on paper, they're more winnable, but my worry is there going to be any momentum, is there going to be any confidence, are we actually going to be picking up results? And that's going to separate us from a top 12 team to a bottom 4-5 team. I also think we've been quite lackluster going forward. Now you can see signs of promise in the football we're playing, but sometimes the players just look like they have no ideas. I think the Spurs game stands out for pretty much everyone in the sense that, you know, we haven't really created enough in some games, and sometimes it's been about not taking our chances. You know, there have been games where we've created, but I think, like I say, the Spurs game, you know, playing against 10 men for so long, really we should have taken the game by the scruff of the neck. And to be fair, the possession was good, we kept a lot of the ball, but it's almost as if the last couple of seasons we've not been playing with the ball at all. We've actually been the team trying to get the ball back. You know, the opposition has more of the ball, and it's almost as if we're not used to actually having a football, which is crazy. You know, it doesn't really make sense, but that's how it feels at times. You know, sideways and backwards passing, it's almost as if players are scared to an extent to take the risk, especially with this high pressing, high intensity football that Arsenal was trying to implement on this team. You know, if a forward pass goes wrong, they do get exposed, and it almost feels as if that's been the problem, and they're scared to play the forward pass or play the cross early. You know, it's just taking too long. Now the final point I want to make is home atmosphere. It's shambolic. There's so many adjectives I could use to describe the home atmosphere so far this season, and it's not just this season actually. In fairness, it's been like this for a while. When Hasenhüttl first came in, there were a couple of games where we really got behind the team and it was a really good atmosphere. I think Spurs really stands out. The Arsenal game, his first home game, stands out, but there have been too many times over the last couple of seasons where there's just no noise at St Mary's. I think Chelsea was the worst I've ever seen it. I don't remember hearing When the Saints once, to be honest with you, and it's almost as if the expectation of some of the fans are too high. We're a fan base, we're a community, we're all together, and that's why it's a bit frustrating that at the home games, for whatever reason, not enough people are getting together to try and get behind the team. As soon as one pass sort of goes askew, people start getting angry, shouting at the team. They're just not getting behind the players. And it's not just that. I think the fact that we've played 3 of the top 6 so far at home already has sort of led to neutrals coming in. I sit in the Itchin, you see a lot of them, paper tickets. It's just, yeah, it's not good enough. Away fans sitting in the home end, that's something that the club needed to address in the summer. They haven't, and it's really not good enough. And the solution to that problem seems to be a bit more longer term. You know, how do we change the atmosphere? How do we improve it? There are singing stands, there are family stands that are supposed to be quiet and more safe for family environments. That's with every stadium. But what do we do? Because I think our away support is actually quite strong. You know, obviously at the derby it was electric, it was fantastic. Most away games we are really good at getting behind the team, singing, getting a really good atmosphere going. So what do we have to change? I think, you know, you can't stop neutrals getting in. The club can try to stop away fans getting home tickets, but it's quite difficult when a lot of them are going on to general sale, and some of these away fans buy memberships just to get access to a ticket for their team, for that home game in the season. I mean, it's ridiculous. But you support the team. If they play a backwards pass, if they make one mistake that doesn't even lead to an opposition goal, calm down, fine, get behind the team. Sing When the Saints when the players walk out. Sing when we're starting to get a bit of possession and we're trying to create chances. It spurs the players on. You hear all this stuff about the 12th man and you can believe it. You know, if I was a footballer, if I can hear 30,000 people cheering for me, no, of course that's going to spur you on, of course that's going to sort of drive you to get a result. So it really needs to improve, because the home games so far have been nowhere near good enough. The performances haven't been nowhere near good enough, but I think the atmosphere, especially against Chelsea, was just so below par. And the main worry for me so far this season is it actually doesn't feel too different from the last couple of seasons. It's almost as if we're used to losing games. I know we've won 2 league games so far, but which for me isn't enough anyway, but you know, we've lost 5 games. It's really not good enough. And some of the difficulties we've faced so far, some of the problems, you know, they're easily adjustable. We can change them. You know, we've got an international break. Hasenhüttl should be on that training pitch with the players that he's got that aren't internationals, you know, sorting this sort of stuff out. You know, there have been positives. The form of Danny Ings of late, Moussa Djenepo has looked like a quality buy. Shea Adams still has the best of him to come. You know, there are positives. Olivier Mayo, he's a massive positive. His performance has been fantastic. So it can get better for us, but the reason why I wanted to make this video is we're getting closer to being the team that we've been the last 2 seasons, and that's really not what we want. We said in the summer we want to be a team who's competitive, who's hard to beat, and that's aiming for top 12, around there. 13th, 14th, you know, potentially we're happy with. Just a team who scores more goals, who gets better results. That's nowhere near relegation trouble, and at the moment 17th. It's relegation fodder. It is. It really is, and we need to sort of buck our ideas up. And what's promising for me is the fact that the fixtures coming up soon, around November, December time, are more winnable on paper. So, you know, that's a promising sign, but we have to put in the performances and have the confidence to get results from these games, because at the moment it still seems like the mentality is weak, as if the players aren't getting behind each other, like the manager's at times lost. And you know, there are a lot of things I think we need to improve on if we want to be that team. We can be that team. We've only played 8 games in the league, but it's going to take a good bit of work and is obviously going to rely on second half of the season results now, I think, already, which is a bit of a shame. So something needs to change. It's not the manager, I'm not saying that at all, because, you know, I've seen tweets saying Hasenhüttl out and he's probably not the right man for the job. It's questioning if he's out of his depth. It's nothing like that. I think it's just a mixture of poor performances from his players, potentially not having an assistant manager, that could be part of it, naive decisions. So hopefully it can improve. Hopefully the team pick up a couple of results. I think a win against Wolves would be incredible. Really get the fans behind the team again, going into a tough game against Leicester at home. You know, if we can get a win against Wolves, build an atmosphere against Leicester, and then potentially get a point from that one. You know, 4 points from Wolves and Leicester, you know, everyone would take that. And then we're going into another couple of games. Oh no, we've got Man City away, that's a write-off. We've got 2 trips to Man City actually in a week, which is not ideal. But then games like Everton at home, Watford at home, potentially Arsenal away, if we're in good form, we could potentially get a point from there. Norwich at home, Aston Villa away, you know, Newcastle away. There are games coming up in the next month or two that are winnable on paper, that we can take points from, but it's going to be all about the next couple of weeks, in my opinion, as to whether we can sort of change some of the problems that we've seen so far. In-game tactics, performances of certain players, who starts the games, things that can be changed quite easily, but we actually have to see change before we get optimistic about our season again. So thank you very much for watching, guys. Do make sure you have subscribed if you're not subscribed already. We'd love to hear what you think about the season so far. Let us know in the comment section below, DM us, tweet us, send us a comment on Instagram, whatever you want to do, because we'd love to hear from you. Also make sure you're following us on our socials, there in the description below, and we will see you in the week as we look ahead to our away trip to Wolverhampton Wanderers. See you soon, guys.